Good to see you. Really good to see you this morning. My name's Ben. How's your week been? How have you got on? Good? Okay? Not so great? Well, I'm really glad that you're here this morning. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you just felt stuck and you didn't know what to do? You didn't know how to turn it around. Maybe it was your team that was getting beat 9-0 and you couldn't figure out a way back into the game. Maybe it was really hard math sum that you just couldn't figure out. Or maybe something hard is happening at home or school and you're not sure how is it going to all work out right. I remember finding myself in one of these situations some time ago and I was stuck. I didn't know what to do. You know, God had told me to do something for him, but I didn't have the money and I needed to make it happen. And what was I to do? Well, I prayed and God said to me just to trust him, and I did. And then the last day, just at the last minute, when I needed the money, a number of people sent me the money, all that I needed. Isn't that amazing? See, when God shows up, things change. You know, in the Bible, there are lots and lots of stories of God's people finding themselves stuck without a way of turning it around. Today's story is one of those. You know, the first disciples have been telling everybody, and I mean everybody, about Jesus. They just can't help it. And then the people that are in charge didn't like it. And they told the disciples, don't you dare tell anybody about Jesus or else. Guess what? Of course, they didn't listen. They couldn't help it. They had to tell people about Jesus. But then one of their friends, Stephen, actually got killed because he was talking about Jesus. And what happened is it kicked off a whole load of things against anyone who believed in Jesus. People were being rounded up and put in prison or worse. And the main guy behind all this was this guy called Saul. He was chasing people who followed Jesus around, trying to get them. What were God's people to do? They were stuck. Didn't seem like there was a way for this to turn around. Well, should we find out what happens in the story? I'm going to read it, and it's from Acts chapter 9. It's quite exciting. I'm reading it from the Storybook Bible, but you can read along in your own Bible as a family in Acts chapter 9. Of all the people who kept the rules, Saul was the best. I'm good at being good, he'd tell you. He was very proud and very good, but he wasn't very nice. Saul hated anyone who loved Jesus, and he travelled around looking for them. He wanted to catch them and put them in prison. He wanted everyone to forget all about Jesus. He didn't believe Jesus was the rescuer, and he didn't believe Jesus was alive either. You see, Saul had never met Jesus. So one day, Jesus met Saul. Saul was on his way to Damascus when suddenly a dazzling light flashed like lightning. It was brighter than the sun. It was too bright. Saul shielded his eyes and fell to the ground. He heard a loud voice. It was too loud. It gave Saul a headache. Saul, Saul, said the loud voice, why are you fighting me? Lord, Saul answered, who are you? I am Jesus, said the voice. When you hurt my friends, you are hurting me too. Saul's whole body trembled. Go to the city, Jesus said, and I'll tell you what to do. When Saul opened his eyes, he couldn't see. His helpers had to hold his hands and lead him like a little child. Saul was blind for 3 whole days, and yet it was as if he was seeing for the very first time. Meanwhile, there was a man called Ananias who loved Jesus. And Jesus came to him in a dream and said, go to Saul and pray for him, and I will make him see again. Ananias knew all about Saul and how he hated Jesus' followers. Lord, he has come to hurt us. But Jesus told Ananias, Saul is the one I've chosen to tell the whole world who I am. So Ananias went to Saul, said, Brother Saul, it was Jesus you met on the road. And Ananias prayed for Saul. Suddenly Saul could see again, but he saw everything differently. He wasn't mean anymore. He changed his name from Saul to Paul, which means small and humble, the very opposite of pride. And do you know what Ananias' name means? The Lord is full of grace. Grace is just another word for gift, which is funny because that's just what Paul's message was all about and would be from then on. What a great story. Isn't that amazing how God turns a situation around that doesn't look like it's going to be good, or how on earth are we going to get unstuck? God knew what was going on. God didn't get confused, and he wasn't behind time. And it was such an amazing turnaround that even God's people that followed Jesus, didn't believe it at first. Ananias couldn't believe it until eventually they got convinced. God showed up and he met Saul and everything changed. You know, Saul became one of God's most powerful messengers, which is quite a turnaround, isn't it? The one who was trying to stop people telling people about Jesus actually became the one who shouted about him the most. I think that's incredible. And not only that, but he also wrote loads of the Bible for us. So he made a real impact on the world. You know, when God shows up, things always change. And sometimes we forget that. You know, if things have been stuck for a while, or if it doesn't look like change is coming quickly, sometimes we forget that when God gets involved, everything changes. So, where are the things that are stuck for you at the moment? Where do you need God to turn things around? Where, perhaps, do you feel like you need him to show up? Where do you need to see change? Let's pray that God shows up, because when he does, things always change. Well, if you're watching along on YouTube, you can go along to our website, because this is just a little short video to get you thinking, but there's lots of activities and things that you can do as a family together, which are really set up to help you meet with God and for him to show up in your life, and you get to share about that with each other. It's really fun. So why don't you head over to our website, www.foilvineyard.co.uk/kids. And that's us for today, and we will see you soon. Bye.